right? From Big Boi, Three Stacks, Dungeon Family, as a people, community, artists, journalists, that we can apply in our everyday lives. What would you say our biggest lesson that we can gain from OutKast? What would you say that lesson is, AR?
Yeah, so I remember listening to OutKast's album Southern Playalistic for the first time, man. I was young, and then I remember like Big Rube got given the definition of OutKast, and then he's like, define OutKast, just like not accepted by the normal society, you know, and so Big Rube is like, he's like, he asked the question, are you an outcast? And he said, I know I am. Matter of fact, if being anything else, I want to be an outcast. And so I think for me, I kind of took that on. It's like, man, I'm going to always do things my way, regardless of if I'm popular or not, if people like me or not, I'm going to always do things my way. And I think that's how we have to approach life. It's like, man, like, do things the way you want to do it. As long as it's not like impacting anybody else, like find your space, be comfortable with your space, and be comfortable with your decisions and the things that you make, right? That's like the biggest thing that you can take from OutKast, right? That's really their model. It was like, we're not going to be like everybody else. We're going to kind of stick out in this crowded field and do things our own way. And so I think if we take that same mentality in any position that you're in, whether you're in a corporate space, whether you're in, doing things independently, always have that mentality of like, man, I want to do things my way and what makes me feel good, what makes me more comfortable, and I'm going to continue to do those things. I'm not going to compromise myself. I'm always going to stand up, always keep my head up. I'm not going to do things because somebody else wants me to do it or that's what the status quo says is right. I want to do things that I know is right because this is the way I see the world. This is the way I see life. And so when it comes to OutKast, that's what I say about them is that they always did things their way. They saw things the way they saw it, and they never let anybody compromise and distract them from where they wanted to go. So those are the biggest lessons that we can take from OutKast.
Mic drop right there. Ladies and gentlemen, the great A.R. Shaw, brother, on the way out, Trap History. Where can we buy the book, read, check it out, follow you, all that good stuff?
Yeah. Check out Trap History, Atlanta Culture, and the Global Impact of Trap Music. I have a whole chapter on OutKast about basically spitting about how they kind of like changed the culture of Atlanta and what Atlanta was before OutKast, and how OutKast basically changed the whole notion of what Atlanta is.
Good people, what's up? What's good, y'all? Welcome to the new studio, new home of 3 Milli Productions. A.R. Shaw is our first person, man, to bless the platform here at the new spot, brother. How you feeling, A.R.?
Man, I'm loving this, man. Loving this new location, man. Growth is always, wonderful, man. This just shows a sign of, of the excellence that you're doing, you and the team, man. So congratulations, and yeah, man, it's a dope spot, man. Definitely looking to see what's coming next with this spot.
Appreciate you, brother. Look, always, man. Look up to you, mentor role, all those things. And bro, I'm scrolling on social media and I see, man, AR is there. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Sure. I'm like, God dang, AR is everywhere, bro. I love it. Man, how was that time experience? And then OutKast, out of all people, all groups, being out there and you're with them during that moment. How did that feel?
Man, it felt almost surreal, right? Because it's like I've been following OutKast probably since like the first day that they dropped Players Ball, right? And just to kind of see Players Ball and where Atlanta was prior to OutKast releasing that song, and to like going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and being in LA at that time, man, it was just like I said, it was something that you don't really expect to ever see, because it's just like, from what Atlanta was to where it is now, man. It's just, like I say, Atlanta, there's only been 3 artists inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame from Atlanta. Gladys Knight is one, and it's a lady, Betsy, I forgot her last name. It's just actually in the article I wrote. But in OutKast, so OutKast is the 3rd ever in Atlanta So that just lets you know how elite this moment is in terms of just like being a part of this class. So yeah, man, it was amazing to kind of to be in LA when OutKast made history.
Wow, brother. Man, thinking about 94, right? Source of Wars is crazy. You know, you think about East Coast, West Coast, right? New York, right? It's the big city, it's the
Yeah.
big dog. Seeing all the growth, right? From Three Stacks, you see Big Boi, right? Goody Mob, everybody, right? Dungeon Family. From that moment being young, right? Shaking in his voice, all of that. But he meant those words.
Yeah.
Seeing André right now, right? With the gray beard, with the Scully on, he's artsy. Man, who is André 3000 to us here in Atlanta? Who do you think he is to us?
I think Andre 3000 is a lot of things. I mean, because we've seen him like in different, I don't know if they're characters or different eras in his life. And I remember when he first came out, he had the Atlanta Braves jersey. Both of them had the, you know, him and Big Boi had the Braves jerseys, and the Braves started coats, and just they were repping Atlanta. It was like, this is what, you know, West Side or Southwest Atlanta looks like. And I think that's what Andre represented in. And then like the ATLians, he becomes like he wearing his turban. It's like we aliens now. And then like Aquemini kind of a mixture of both. And then like Stankonia, he had like this rock star vibe. And then the Love Below, it was more about, you know, melody. So we've seen him like in different, you know, forms. And to kind of see him now, you know, older, you know, we got the gray, walking the skull. It's just like we've seen him transform. So it's just like it's interesting to see that growth from back then to now. So that was an interesting thing to see.
Indeed, bro. Big Boi, right? That's another one, man. I feel like he does not get his flowers enough.
Yeah.
Why do you think so often he gets, you know, overlooked? Like everybody, like they always ask about André, but it's like Big Boi, he's just as nice. Why is he like often overlooked in your PNAR?
Because Big Boi is the steady hand, right? Because I think a lot of times when you have a steady hand, somebody who's like he's consistent too, and people don't really know that Big Boi is really the plug of OutKast, like because Big Boi is actually like he met a girl when he was in I think like 10th grade at Tri Cities High School in East Point, and the girl connected him to Rico Wade. So Big Boi is actually the plug to OutKast. He was the plug to get to Rico Wade. So and then if you listen to early OutKast music, Big Boi was doing a lot of the hooks. Listen to Elevators, you know, me and you, yo mama, like that's, you know what I'm saying. So Big Boi was very intricate in like, you know, shaping the sound of OutKast and the direction, and he's consistent. And so I think a lot of times when you have a mercurial partner like André, a lot of times because you don't know what to expect from André, he's always gonna do something different. And like Big Boi's like that steady hand. It's like we know Big Boi's gonna wear that A hat. He's always gonna represent Atlanta. He's gonna do it his way, from a stylish standpoint. Big Boi was the first person to kind of usher in the throwback jerseys in the 90s. Like he was the first person to rock a throwback jersey. And then you saw like New York kind of capture that whole throwback moment, right? So yeah, Big Boi, he doesn't get a lot of credit, but I think if people really listen to like what OutKast represents, the lyrics and the hooks and the choruses, Big Boi was definitely intricate in the growth of OutKast and where they are right now.
Yeah, bro. Great actor, by the way, man.
Great
ATL, when
actor.
that first came out, I think it was what, '06 AR? I think I was like in summer camp at the time.
Okay.
Bro, took us to the movies. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared of Big Boi after that.
Yeah.
Great actor, Idlewild, all of that, man. Extremely talented though, bro. Hey, you right. You right.
Yeah.
What do you think made OutKast really pop, like as a culture to us as a people? Because man, again, if we go back to like mid '90s, right? It's Nas, it's
Yep.
Big, right? Jay-Z, he's bubbling. You got Pop, all these mega stars, right?
Yeah.
But little old Atlanta found a way to become a big dog. How did that happen, AR?
Yeah, man. So just giving you know, people a little bit of like history about Atlanta and basically just hip hop period. And I did a piece on social media about just like regionalism. And it's crazy to think that like regionalism was like an issue in hip hop at the time when it was just like you could only come from like 2 states, like literally 2 states, New York and California, and to make it to the mainstream, because that's where all the major record labels were during that time. Like if you were to get to a national platform, you had to be a part of that machine, right? And you know, Atlanta was just disconnected from that. Um, as I mentioned in my clip today, it was only 3 major video shows, right, that you could see rap. Right, it was hard to see rap in the 90s, right? It was just you couldn't really see it. You had UMTV Raps, you had Rap City, and you had the box. Like, that was the only time you got a chance to see rap music, like, because it's just like, first of all, MTV didn't for a long time. MTV didn't play black people at all. Like, Michael Jackson was the first black artist that was played on MTV.
That shows you how hard it
That
was.
just show you how hard it was for black artists to get on mainstream on a national platform. And if you think about hip hop was really just not even considered music at the time. They thought hip hop was really going to be like disco. They thought hip hop was going to be around for like a couple of years and then just die out. And so they didn't really understand the power of hip hop until like maybe like I would say around 87, 88. And then you get a Yo MTV Raps, and then a Rap City, and then the box was the video box. Music video box was basically like a side station where you could pay for videos, and you could see you could see the videos that you paid for. But Atlanta didn't really have an infrastructure at that time in terms of just like hip hop music. Atlanta's primary sound was bass music. So you had guys like Kilo Ali, you had Raheem the Dream, you had Hitman, Sammy Sam. Like, they were big here. Like, they were like, everybody in Atlanta knew who Kilo Ali was. But if you ask somebody about Kilo Ali in New York or California, they didn't know who Kilo Ali was. But he was amazing. Like, he was big in Atlanta during the early 90s. And what's interesting about Kilo Ali is that later on, Beyonce she samples Kilo Ali's Cocaine for her song. What's the song, Sid? I know Sid knows. What's
America Has a Problem?
America Has a Problem?
Yeah, that's it. America Has a Problem.
America Has a Problem. That's America, right? America Has a Problem. Sampled Kilo Ali, and we was like, damn, she sampled Kilo Ali.
Hard too.
Yeah, it was hard. Like, one of the hardest songs. So it's like, but Atlanta was so underground at the time. It was just hard for Atlanta to get mainstream access to just out. Back then we had a guy named Arnell Starr. He had a show that came on like it was like public access. Like, I think it was like Channel 69 or something, right? So it was a weird station, but every Friday and Saturday, Arnell Starr would play all the Atlanta music videos. So that was the only time you got a chance to see a Kilo Ali video, Hitman Sammy Sam video, Raheem the Dream, the Organization. He was playing all the Atlanta like underground videos. Arnell Starr, shout out to Arnell Starr. He passed away a couple years back, but Arnell Starr was the first guy who was playing Atlanta videos. And so it was just hard for Atlanta to kind of get that mainstream attention until OutKast came. And so what was interesting about OutKast and how they got the mainstream attention was LaFace Records. And then you got it because of course Babyface, L.A. Reid, they signed a distribution deal with Arista Records. And the Arista Records is owned by Clive Davis. So that's the machine that kind of, you know what I'm saying, catapulted LaFace, and then catapulted OutKast, and then catapulted Atlanta into the mainstream. So that's like kind of a history lesson of how Atlanta went from basically obscure in hip hop to basically the epicenter of hip hop.
Y'all, this is why A.R. Shaw always comes back here, breaking it down, real knowledge about your favorite city, which is, of course, right here, Atlanta, bro. Hearing that too, man. Black media is so important.
Yeah.
During their speech, I heard a name that I love, DJ Greg Street.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, Greg Street's name, 6 o'clock, time for Greg Street to rock. It's happening right here, LA, at this moment, right? How important was and is black media here in Atlanta for black artists, and especially black artists like OutKast when it comes towards us?
Yeah, definitely, because black media was the first to kind of, like I say, Arnell Starr was one of the first. He was black media. He was a black man who basically created his own video channel to basically highlight these artists that nobody paid attention to. And then a few years later, I think Greg Street came in like 95. I think he came in from Texas. He came to work for V103. That's right around the time Hot 97 came to Atlanta. Radio 1 came, and it was like the first hip hop station in Atlanta. Prior to Hot 97 coming to Atlanta, V103 only played rap music one day out of the week. It was on every Friday there was a show called the I think it's called the Fresh Fest. I want to make sure I get this
I
right.
never knew this though.
Yeah. It was every Friday night. V103 would have a night with it. It was the night they played hip hop. So what we would do, I was a kid then. I don't know, maybe like 5, 6 or 7. We were and my older siblings and my older friends. What they would do is we had the cassette tapes, and then we would have to record the radio station on every Friday night, and then that's how we got hip hop. So that was the only time you could like listen to hip hop was on Friday nights on V103. The other days they just played R&B. So V103 was really an R&B station. And then, once Radio 1 came in 95, V103 was like, oh man, we gotta really like catch up. We can't, you know what I'm saying? We gotta get in. So they brought in Greg Street to kind of come in and kind of, bring V103's hip hop, give it more relevance. So that's pretty much Greg Street's his whole thing. That's how he got involved with Atlanta media and being the voice of Southern hip hop.
That's beautiful, man. Again, André, hearing him state that name, it's like only like if you're from Atlanta,
Yeah.
you would know that. Do you see a future Greg Street, right, where Atlanta artists have a person that they can connect with, talk to? Because during this current era, as you know, AR, a real journalist, you see streaming that's taking off. This is taking off. But like, do you think that we could see again a person on a V103, or even if it's like another platform, bringing back a new OutKast, new artist, to where they can sit down, talk to them? How do you feel about, I would say, the future of Atlanta black media?
Well, I think it's open now, and it's different. It's different from back then to what it is now, because I think it's kind of like the cat's out of the bag now. Back then, it was just so kind of like something new, and nobody really outside of Atlanta didn't really know about a lot of Atlanta music and Atlanta artists, and even Southern artists. Like a lot of Southern artists were disconnected from the national, just the national exposure. So back then, it was like, okay, if you were able to kind of hop on it early. Somebody like a Sonya Moore, who was at the AJC, was like one of the first people to kind of put OutKast on a newspaper cover. She did it like in '94, I think '95. She put OutKast on the AJC, and this is at a time when the AJC wasn't known for embracing anything black culture related. Now they have a whole black culture department over there at AJC. Shout out to UATL, my good folks. But yeah, so it's just like to back then it was more a chance to kind of jump on that on a wave that really hadn't came yet. Now it's just like it's so many people like paying attention right now. It's just kind of like you have to kind of if there's someone who's going to be that next Greg Street or Sonya Murray, you're gonna have to kind of take a different lane in terms of how you're presenting it, because it's just so many people have their eyes on it now, and it's been dissected. It's got people across the world paying attention to Atlanta now. So it's a bit different. So I definitely always think that people who have a good feel for what's happening, they're gonna be able to have that presence in black media. But I just think it's a little bit different in terms of where Greg Street was back in the '90s versus right now.
Yeah, nah, bro, for sure. What do you think the South has, bro, that really attracts the world? Because man, I think about OutKast, I think about Master P, Baby, Wayne, like all these people. Jay Prince. It's
Yep.
something about, I see them all as bosses, moguls,
Yep.
independent, and they all come from the South. But then the world loves them. What is it about the South, AR?
So if you listen to like early if you listen to '80s and then '90s hip hop versus right now, in the '80s, like New York really just dominated hip hop. LA kind of got a bit of airplay, but it was really New York. The South came in prominence with hip hop because of the musicianship in the South. So in the South you got choirs, right? So church gospel is really big in the South, right? So a lot of times you have artists who come up in the church choir, playing in the church choir. Another thing is marching bands, right? So it's like from a young age in the South, it's like the marching bands are king, right? And so instrumentation becomes a big part of who we are as a culture in the South. You know what I'm saying? You go to the marching bands, every homecoming, HBCU homecomings, we experiencing all this as kids, right? So it's like it's almost embedded into who we are. There's no HBCUs in New York or California, so it's like they kind of miss out on that. Where it's like I remember being a kid and just going to a Morehouse or a Spelman homecoming and seeing the bands, and it's like you don't really know what's going on. You just know that this is a part of who we are. Like this is who we are. And so you think about what's happening in the South. The same thing is happening in Louisiana. Same thing is happening in South Carolina, North Carolina, in Tennessee. So from a musicianship standpoint, I think the South always leaned into more of I guess from the sound standpoint, more so than New York in terms of just what they brought to hip hop. I think New York brought superb lyricism when it came to hip hop, whereas the South brought in more musicianship in terms of the production value just kind of went up. And now every artist, whatever region you're from, either has an Atlanta sound or a Southern sound in terms of the production.
Facts, bro. Right on the money. Man, from hearing Killer Mike interview, Big Boi, I saw a tape from Goody Mob, I think like in the 90s, just
Yep.
talking about like black history. That pocket of these guys, which is crazy to say, who are now 50s, late 40s, why do you think they were so conscious as like young black men? Because in today's time, I'm not trying to knock our artists, any of that, but like they don't really talk about too many social issues or
Yep.
about, black issues. Kendrick, of course, that's why Kendrick came in and sliced and diced, because up here, man, he's so smart, cerebral, all of those things. But man, again, a Killer Mike, I hear him talking
Yep.
about Morehouse, CeeLo, all of them, right? Why do you think they were so conscious, and do you think that we could ever bring that back in today's time in Atlanta for our current artists right now?
Definitely. So if you talk about Atlanta's, like why Atlanta's artists, particularly that Dungeon Family, Organized Noise, why that sector was like why they were so conscious when it came to music, you got to look at their age and kind of what was like the generation before them. But prior to hip hop's Atlanta's, embracing hip hop and becoming dominant in Atlanta, the the last major movement in Atlanta was what? The civil rights movement. So if you talk about the civil rights movement, and then it's like our parents are like, teaching us about Dr. Martin Luther King, they're teaching us about John Lewis, Andrew Young, Hosea Williams. They're teaching us about all of these giants that walk the streets of Atlanta, and then it's like embedded into who we are, and then that's why you get a Big Rube who's poetic on the Southern Playalistic album, and even André and Big Boi, talking about social issues on that first album, and then you get a Killer Mike who's always preaching about what's happening, in the CeeLo Green and the Goody Mob talking about what's happening. So that's a direct correlation from Atlanta's hip hop movement to Atlanta's civil rights movement, and so that kind of you see how that connection came about, right? And so and that's why I think it's kind of different from other cities where you don't really. I think if you come up in Atlanta and you say, damn man, like Dr. King walked these streets, like John Lewis walked, like giants walked these streets, it's going to automatically, as a black person, give you that confidence to say, man, we can do the same thing. We can impact the world the same way. And it doesn't have to be with music or from a political standpoint, but we can always impact the world in a different way, considering that we've walked the same streets that giants walked, who basically changed the world. So if we saw that, Dr. Martin Luther King could change the world in his way, and OutKast could change the world in their way, we can change the world too. So I think we have to kind of understand what that means, that how the power of walking in Atlanta and understand the heroes that came before us.
That's beautiful, brother. AR, is Atlanta still the Black Mecca, in your personal opinion, brother? How do you feel about that?
Yes, I mean, I keep hearing this, is Atlanta still the Black Mecca? It's still the. So, I mean, Atlanta has a lot of issues. And I think a lot of times, even my book, Trap History, I talk about the income inequality that persists in Atlanta, where it's like, one of the largest income inequality gaps in the nation, where it's like it's only like a 4% chance for someone to escape poverty by by the time they're 30 years old. So there's always been that severe issue of Atlanta between the haves and the have-nots in terms of how do you break poverty, how do you break out of that generational. People talk about generational wealth, but they can also be generational poverty. How do you break out of that, right? So Atlanta does still have those issues, and but at the same time, if you go to any other city in America, there's still not a city like Atlanta in terms of the black presence, in terms of black leadership, in terms of just black opportunities that you could have if you're black. You know, you're not going to get this in New York. You're not going to get this in even like a Chicago or definitely not in LA. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, you know, America right now is just an attack on black people all the way around, right? We seeing an attack on black people from our government, but Atlanta still is the place, I think, in terms of if there's any place for black people in America, it is Atlanta. Now, I think, there's still some outliers in other places. I think what's happening in Maryland that people need to look out, and also what's happening in Charlotte. Those are good touch points that we should also highlight as well, of where black people are doing good in those places. But in the overall sense, I still think Atlanta is still a great place for black people, but there's still some issues that we have to address.
Yes, sir, man. And you were right. Like so much is changing. We see homelessness, all these things. OutKast, man, growing up, they always helped me feel super creative.
Yep.
Especially when you see Big Boi, his personality,
Yep.
Andre 3000 as well. What impact as a creative has OutKast had on you, your approach towards media creation, content, all of those things?
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing about Outkast, I think they pretty much inspire all creatives in terms of not staying put, right? I think the biggest thing with them is that if you do one thing, try to make the next thing better, or try to explore the next possible thing that you can do that's going to be almost counter to what you just did, and kind of keep people guessing. So I think that's kind of the approach that I take, and that's the approach that I think more a lot of creatives should take in terms of how do they continue to grow. Because if you look at Outkast, it's like first 4 or 5 albums, everything was different. Like Southern Playalistic didn't sound like ATLians, ATLians didn't sound like Aquemini, Aquemini didn't sound like Stankonia, and then The Love Below just and Speaker Box just was just like on a whole nother level, right? So if we look at that in terms of always not being unafraid to explore, being unafraid to like do something that's different, not confine yourself to a box, and not saying that if people see you some way, that doesn't mean they have to always see you this way. Like you can grow as an artist, and so I think that's what Outkast did, for creators in terms of just inspiration, inspiring you to like do something different. And so for me, that's pretty much how I like to say, okay, I saw that this is how Big Boi and Andre did it, and man, I could do the same thing from a media standpoint, as an author, as a journalist. I can always look for ways to improve and not to like find myself stuck in a box. Always try to do things that are a bit different.
Sir. Man. On social media, everybody's trying to find drama, complaints. Oh, Andre, he didn't perform, all
Yeah.
these other things. How did you feel about Three Stacks not performing? Do you feel like he should have? How do you feel about it, AR?
So Three Stacks not performing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So what's interesting about that was that the day of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, everybody was like, "Man, is Andre gonna show up? Is Andre gonna show up?" And I was talking to this lady who lives in California, and like she was like, "Yeah, I just saw." She just walked up to me. She's like, "Yeah, I just saw Andre on Venice Beach." She showed me a picture of Andre walking by himself on Venice Beach. It was just random. She's like, and I was like, well, and she was like, well, you think he gonna show up to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I was like, I don't know if he's on the beach. Like he was basically on the beach like the day of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, just walking by himself on Venice Beach, right? So she shows me a picture of him walking on the beach. They later said that he was gonna be there to do the acceptance speech, but he didn't perform. So I look at it two ways in terms of, what. So the fan in me is like, man, I wanted to get that one moment with OutKast. I wanted them to perform, if not anything, Players Ball, because that was the first single that pretty much put them on the map. I would have loved for Andre to kind of like come out on that with that verse, and then like to see Big Boi and Andre trade verses for, if it's gonna be the last time, let it be the last time. I was definitely disappointed as a I was disappointed as a fan about that. A lot of people were disappointed. A lot of people were going off on Andre like, man, F Andre, he's selfish. He's this. There's a lot of people on TikTok talking about, going off on Andre for not performing. But, you have to kind of look at it. If Big Boy is not upset and if the Dungeon family is not upset, then we can't be upset about him not performing. Um, so yeah, so I had to kind of look at it both ways. I definitely wanted to see it happen, but like I say, if the Dungeon family are there, if they're okay with his decision to not perform, then we have to be okay with the decision of him not performing. Um, so unfortunately, this might be we probably won't see OutKast again, right? So it's like, because the thing about the Hall of Fame is almost like, damn, the Hall of Fame. If you look at it from a sports standpoint, once a player gets into the Hall of Fame, it's like the deuces. Like you've done what you needed to do to kind of like impact culture. You've done it, and so I don't know if there's ever going to be a moment where we're going to get an OutKast anything with Andre and Big Boi again. Now, the only other moment that could possibly happen, Atlanta has the Super Bowl in 2028. So if we could get OutKast to perform at the Super Bowl,
Jay-Z, hope you listening.
that would be a big thing. But would Andre want to perform at a Super Bowl? And I don't know. So that's the biggest thing. It's just like for me, if I think that's the only thing that could like be as big as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a Super Bowl, because you got at Super Bowl you're gonna get over 100 million people watching you, and if it's in Atlanta, and it's like, this is what Atlanta means, and this is what OutKast means to the city of Atlanta. In 2028, that'll be like the 30-year anniversary of Aquemini.
It's too poetic, bro.
It's too poetic. So it's like, and Aquemini is considered like artistically their best project. It got 5 mics in the source. So, I don't know how Andre is going to be feeling in a few years. We don't know. He could be playing the guitar or something in 2 or 3 years. We don't know what Andre going to be doing in a few years, but I think that's probably the last big moment in the near future where we could see an OutKast reunion is possibly the Super Bowl. Other than that, I don't see another.
AR, bro.
Reunion.
Perfect rollout. 30-year anniversary, Super Bowl 2028. Drop an album at midnight, maybe, because you got all the streaming going up. It's perfect.
Drop an album.
Man, why do you think Andre is just so mysterious, dog? Like, he's a unicorn.
Yeah.
He's like at the laundromat doing complex interviews, or to your point, at Venice Beach. But then he doesn't want to get in the booth. But like, bro, it's so frustrating because he's one of the greats.
Yeah.
Like HOF, he gave us 444. So I could just imagine Andre at 50 dropping an album. But why do you think he's just so recluse to himself and not just out there as much?
Well, I mean, Andre, it's two things. I mean, I'm not really into astrology, but the Gemini thing is real. Like a lot of, for whatever reason,
can't argue with
the
that
Geminis are just Geminis. Like, it's just who they are. They're gonna give you 2 personalities at all times. Shout out to my Geminis. I ain't no disrespect. But he's a Gemini, so he's always gonna like kind of like, have these moments where it's just like, all right, I feel this way, and sometimes I don't feel this way, And he's only child, and so he kind of grew up, pretty much, isolated a lot. And I think he talked about, so having social anxiety and not wanting to go outside a lot of times. And I saw one interview where he said, fame really just isn't natural. It really isn't like natural for that many people to know you or that many people to give you admiration. And if you think about it, it really isn't. Like, even like if you think about like social media, like we're not really supposed to be connected to this many people.
It's not real.
We're not supposed to know this many people in life. If you think about like, even like 40 or 50 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, right before social media, you really just knew the people that were in your neighborhood, who were in your city, in your small town. That's the people who you knew. Those are the people who you were your friends for life. You found somebody, you got married, and that was your life, right? Now you can kind of like see a new person every single second that you never known, right? It's really not natural, right? It's not really natural for us to have this much connection to so many people. And so for Andre's standpoint, he's like, look, it's really not natural for people to be screaming, a million people to be screaming your name at one time, or or for you to like feel like you always have to like be on the clock for people. Because at the same time, when you're a performer, you are on the clock. You're always working for people. You always got to smile for people, or take a picture for people. So they could be draining. They could take a lot out of you. And if you're really not a social person, if you're an introvert, that can kind of drain a lot of your energy. So I just kind of think that's just the type of person he is. Like I think, you know, for whatever reason, he doesn't really crave the spotlight a lot of times. And I think he just wants to kind of like pop out when he wants to pop out. Not when someone tells him that he has to kind of pop out. He wants to be on his own time, right? And so I think that's what you kind of have to deal with. And Big Boy has had to deal with this person, you know, for you know the entire duration of OutKast. So we got to give props to Big Boy again for like understanding his partner and like, all right, I'm gonna let you be who you are, and I accept who you are, and then when we get together, we're gonna get together. So yeah, I think that's just a major thing. That's just kind of who Andre is as a person.
So, as fans, right, diehard fans, how do we cope with Andre not being, as visible as out? How do we cope? Because man, during the Super Bowl, I can only imagine if he doesn't perform, they really gonna crash out.
Yeah, if they get an opportunity to do a Super Bowl, I think it would have to kind of be both of them, and he would have to kind of sign a contract for them to do the Super Bowl. So I think the Super Bowl process is like a long process where it's just like a lot of contractual work that has to go into what's happening. Um, I think the best way to cope is to kind of, I mean, Outkast has really left us with a lot of great music. Um, they've left us with a lot of great projects in terms of we can always go back and like there's a song for every mood that you could think of for Outkast. Like if you're happy, they got a song for you. If you kind of contemplate, in a contemplative mood, Outkast has a song for you. If you're trying to get crunk or whatever, Outkast got a song for you. So Outkast, they have a song for every mood, and so I think you have to kind of like think of it that way. Kind of go back, look at old YouTube clips of them performing. So they've left enough content for us to kind of like go back and to delve into. And for me, I'm just like, all right, I'm good with that because I would rather to like have that versus them to try to do something that's not cohesive and then not on the same page and then it don't come out right, right? Because we've seen it before, right? A lot of times when artists come try to make a comeback, and then it's just the feeling just not there. You're just like, man, what is this? And then you just like leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Um, Outkast, in a sense, they like Jordan Game 6. Jordan Game 6 against the Utah Jazz. Leave with that. Jordan should have left like that. He should have never came back. And when he went back to the Wizards, it was a disaster, right? So it's like sometimes you just need to leave it where it is and let the fans appreciate the things that you've done. So,
Yeah. Beautifully said, bro. Rico Wade, man.
oh
That's another
man,
person.
yeah.
He needs all of his flowers, sometimes overlooked. Who exactly was Rico Wade and why is he so important to Outkast? And man, not only them, just music as a whole. Why was he so important as a person?
Yeah, Rico Wade, man, major part of just not just Outkast, but the entire Atlanta music scene. Him, Rico Wade, East Point, he was the person who found Outkast, but he was working prior to Outkast. They were working with a group called Parental Advisory (PA). They were a group out of Atlanta prior to Outkast, and so the dungeon that's pretty much where it started. And the dungeon was Rico's mother's house, and they were like make music in the dungeon, and so Rico was like the leader. He was like the almost like the coach of the dungeon family. Um, I remember they said that when Andre and Big Boi first started, Rico would have them write. He would have them to say their raps while they would run around the block. So they would be running and jogging around the block, and he would have them rapping to get their their stamina up on stage because that's you have to always have that. So he was the one who coached them up. He was the person who kind of pretty much they already had the natural talent, and now he kind of like honed their skills to say, all right, this is what you want to do, and then he brought them into L.A. Reid, and then I think they performed for L.A. Reid multiple times, and then L.A. Reid finally was like, all right, because L.A. Reid before that, L.A. Reid was really an R&B guy. He didn't know much about hip hop, and he didn't really want to deal with hip hop because he didn't really not understand their world. But Rico Wade, he was the guy who kind of like let L.A. Reid know, all right, these guys are much different. And so yeah, I got an opportunity to talk to Rico Wade multiple times. I interviewed Rico Wade multiple times, and I remember him. We were just talking, and he was saying, he was talking about Atlanta. He was like, man, he's like, Atlanta, we don't really have much in terms of just like scenery. He was like, we don't really have like, water. There's no beaches. There's no, it's nothing like people gonna come to see. But it was like, we create the culture, and people gonna come see the culture. And so he was just telling me that, like, it's like, you don't come for the beaches in Atlanta because ain't no beaches, but you're gonna come for the culture. And so that was something that kind of stuck out to me when I interviewed Rico Wade. It was like, man, he kind of helped to create something that wasn't really present and made it like huge, made it something that has a global impact. So, shout out to Rico Wade, untimely passing, but he was definitely intricate in Atlanta's music scene.
Bro, that's a bar, man. Hey, we don't have beaches. Hey, I always say that too. Like, bro, I don't see a beach nowhere.
No beaches, man.
No attractions, any of that. So, man, what exactly is our culture here in Atlanta, AR? How would you best word that?
I mean, it's been many things, but I think before like I say OutKast, it was a civil rights movement because Dr. King and John Lewis and Hosea Williams, they did so much in terms of creating a presence in the civil rights era. You got a civil rights museum that's that's a couple blocks away. And so that was kind of like what Atlanta culture was for before OutKast, right? And then you get OutKast coming in, and it creates this huge hip hop culture, right? Where it's just like Atlanta becomes the dominant force of hip hop, becomes the epicenter of hip hop, and now that's I think that's what it is. It's like I've had people from around the country, I mean around the world, to kind of interview me about what's happening in Atlanta. I know we did an interview with a guy from Italy,
Yeah, you're right.
who flew into Italy, flew in from Italy. We did much respect for me allowing the space, but a guy from Italy flew in just to interview me about Atlanta. Like he caught a plane all the way over here just to talk about Atlanta's music scene and what was happening within Atlanta's culture. So that lets you know the impact of what's been created here. And so I think we have to kind of hone that, right? Really just like, all right, man, this is something that's not in every city. Like that's not happening in Birmingham. It's not happening in Charlotte. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not really happening in other cities where it's like, man, you can look down and say, damn, it's 30 years plus of people who've been a part of this culture and have made a huge impact. So I think that's something that's major, right? I think that's a big thing. Just like the impact of what Atlanta represents. And I just think we just got to kind of like really own that space. I think that's the most important thing about it.
Listen, man, I completely agree, bro. And I find like all of this so ironic, right?
Yeah.
Where we're in this current time, and bro, you just talked about this. We see the Trumps, the government
Yep.
shut down, right? DEI, this, all of these things, but then they always want black culture, right?
Yep.
As black creatives, journalists, all of these things, and everyday folks too. How can we keep pushing forward during this time as black creators, all these things where we see DEI programs being shut down. We see people attacking black culture. So how do we push it forward during this time, AR?
Yeah, I mean, we have to own it, right? And so I think, right, like I said, right now it's really an attack on black people. They say it's an attack on DEI. It's really an attack on black people. I think what people don't understand is what DEI is: diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's not just about black people. It's about it's the whole thing about it. It's about handicap. It's about against ageism, and it's about equal rights for women. So it's just not about black people, but for whatever reason, it's become about black people, right? It's become like the new N word for the government to like say, this, and we've seen like corporate media, do these mass firings with black people, with black staff members. We've seen like over 300,000 black women being laid off just within this year, and so we've seen like a total attack on black people. And so I think for us, it's like, one thing that Kendrick said at the Super Bowl was like, yeah, you can try to rig the game, but you can't fake influence. Like you can't fake the influence of black people. Like regardless of what you do, you can try to hold black people back, create these, barriers for black people, but you can't knock the influence, right? Um, if you look at like social media, the social media in terms of this is one aspect of what Black people contribute to social media. Corporate media and social media, they use Black vernacular now to sell products. Just take it. Now, even the White House is using Black vernacular. Like the White House social media page uses Black vernacular in their tweets on their social media pages. And so we see that like they're still trying to capture our culture, trying to misuse the culture in a way and try to and use it for their own good. But in the same and at the same time, they want to not give you access to certain things and limit your access to basically progression. And so I think, like I said, for us, it's really just to kind of do what our ancestors did. Ancestors just continue to work, continue to put in the work, continue to do what they do. Understand that there's always going to be a segment of society that just for whatever reason disrespects Black people in some form or fashion. But at the same time, we have to like look and say, all right, we understand our power, we understand what we bring, what we contribute, and continue to do that. Continue to understand what our value, and don't let just because they say, okay, this law says that you can't do this, don't let those laws stop us from what we're going to do, right? So I think that's the best thing that we can do is to kind of continue doing what we do best, and that's just to be creative and to come up with new things and new ways to basically lead the nation. Because you look at the nation, they follow what Black people do. That's just what it is. It's not anything that's racial or racist. I think America is about everybody having a voice and a place, and when you try to limit one group of people, it backfires. It always backfires. So just look forward to backfire. That's what I always say. Whenever you try to put something down or put Black people down in particular, it always backfires. So I just think we should always just continue to embrace culture, continue to embrace what we create, and I think things will work out for us.
Yeah. Hey, bro, you killing this conversation. Why do you think Black art makes white America so uncomfortable, bro? Because when I see, to your point, a Kendrick that made white America uncomfortable, right? A lot of them try to side with Drake. When I see Killer Mike, his album, he deserved that Grammy. He bodied it, and he's talking about Black history. Alonzo Herndon, he's talking about Auburn Avenue, all these things. Toni Morrison, she even talked about this same sentiment that Black art sometimes makes them uncomfortable. Why do you think that's the case so often when it comes towards our Black artists, AR?
Yeah, and I want to say like I said, I'm not going to like blanket everybody because there's some
I
white
would
people.
say like racist white America.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
White supremacy.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I mean, because Black art is liberating, right? It shows expression. It shows that you have a voice, that you are present, that you are a threat, because the thing is, unfortunately, there's some people who they disregard Black people, Black art. They try to disregard it and say it doesn't matter, and it's not. It doesn't. It's not really relevant to society. But I think the threat of it is like the biggest thing. And like I say, once art is expression. It shows you that we can impact people from whatever small town we in, and now you have a whole people in Japan basically having a whole subculture of them mimicking Black people, right? And you understand the power of Black art in different ways and how it manifests. And so it's just really about that threat. A lot of times people don't really understand it. A lot of times people don't really want to really just take the time to really understand, where it comes from. They want to suppress it. And like I say, anytime you try to suppress it, it always backfires. It's always going to backfire. So yeah, I think, but I think that's not anything that's not new. I think our ancestors have always dealt with, individuals trying to so either whether suppress art or suppress the vote or suppress anything that you're trying to do for progression. And so I just, like I said, for us, it's really not up to us to kind of make people feel a type of way about what we do. It's really just up for us to continue to do what we do, continue to create. And if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. I don't think we can kind of you can't really force people to like what you do. But it's just up to us to kind of continue to just to be creative and continue to express ourselves the best way we know how.
Facts. Do you think that now our people want more artists to be more like socially conscious, right? Because I'm seeing now, people aren't playing like hip hop as much on the Billboard charts. I saw that too, and now I see, man, Southern Soul that's taking off. EJ Jones, shout out to him. Like I see Boots on the Ground that's doing numbers, like all these things. Do you think that now people want an artist, a rapper, right, who's actually more like socially conscious, opposed to the same subject matters every single time about death, drugs, killings? How do you feel about that, AR?
Well, that's a two-part question. The Billboard situation was with Billboard. Of course, I think there was a thing, and it was rage bait to me. They Billboard came out with like a, excuse me. They came out with the thing that's saying that I think for the first time in 30 years that no hip hop artists have charted, right? But it was really kind of like I said, it was rage bait, and it was really something that wasn't really. They didn't really give you the full scope of what it was. Basically, they changed the dynamics of the charts, right? Where it's like it's something like a stipulation that they changed where you couldn't be. They wanted to kind of like bring more new songs in, right? And so for a certain amount of weeks or something, that if a song has been on the charts for a certain amount of weeks, that it'll get removed because of that stipulation. Otherwise, Kendrick Luther would have made it. Kendrick and SZA Luther would have made it. But they changed the game. They rigged the game, right? And so they come out with this headline: "Oh yeah, hip hop hasn't been successful. I mean, hip hop hasn't charted for the first time in 30 years." So like I said, it was rage bait, because when has hip hop depended on Billboard? Yeah. Like, I don't care what a Billboard chart is. Like, the average fan they're not looking at a chart. Like, that's for the corporate record labels. That's for the corporations. That's for them. We don't care about, like, and that's the thing. Like, people get caught up in record sales, get caught up in what something charted. As long as the song made you feel good, or it made you feel a type of way, when you heard it, that's what counts the most. Metro Boomin take you through that. Like, that's number one in Atlanta. I don't care about a Billboard chart. Like,
all you gotta do is just go outside.
Just go outside, put that song on and see what happens. See how the people react. So we don't care if Taylor Swift got the first 10 songs on the Billboard chart. That don't matter in West Atlanta, right? That don't matter in East Atlanta. So to me, music is all about how it makes you feel to whatever, the people that it's for. And so whether a song is on the Billboard chart or not, I don't think that's really a test to whether it's great or not. And I don't think it should ever be. I don't care if an album sold 2 copies. If it's a good album, it's a good album. Going back to even the Danger Family, I thought EJ the Witch Doctor had one of the best projects. That's, to me, one of the best hip hop projects ever. It didn't sell that many records, but it's still a dynamic project. Kilo Ali didn't never go platinum, but Kilo Ali was platinum in Atlanta. Like, in terms of just
Rich Kids for me.
Rich Kids, like,
and they up there for us.
No, Rich Kids, like, they didn't really, they weren't like multi-platinum artists, but you put Rich Kids on in a certain demo, gonna go crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't care about the Billboard charts. Like, that ain't really, and I don't think I don't think fans should focus on that. That's just like I said, it's rage bait, and that's just a headline to say, oh man, people not listening to hip hop no more, because is hip hop falling off now? Like, hip hop never really was about being consumed by the mainstream. It was really about expression between Black culture, or just like, the cultures that didn't have a voice. It was a voice for the voiceless. That's what hip hop was all about. And so it wasn't really about what the mainstream thought it was supposed to be about. It later, because it was so popular, mainstream gravitated towards hip hop, but initially that wasn't what it was about. It was a conversation between a certain group of people, and then it became bigger. So, like I say, forget about what the Billboard, forget about that. Now, and to your other question, in terms of are people wanting to hear more conscious rap, I think so. But at the same time, I think we have to always understand that, Black people aren't monolithic. You go to a Black event, and it's like, all right, you got Kendrick Lamar here, then you got NBA Youngboy. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are little cousins. And so, you know what I'm saying? So these are little wild cousins, but they still family. So it's like, you have to understand, like, for me, it's like really about having different perspectives. I try to like understand the perspective. I don't have to like it, you know what I'm saying? But I want to understand it and understand where it comes from, because at the end of the day, these are different aspects of black experience. And so it's the black experience isn't one thing. And when it's honest and it's like, all right, this is the life I live. This is my experiences in life. I can get with that. My only issue is when people are using black negativity or black pain for consumption and you didn't live that life. That's my only issue, is when you try to use something that you didn't live or you didn't experience to make money off of it. And then that's, to me, that's when you like you basically using the culture for your own good, and that's my only issue. But I want to hear Kendrick, and then we want to give a space for the young boy fans. Let them be over there. Let the young boy fans be over there, but they got a space. They got a space where they need to be. So yeah.
Indeed, bro. Young boy, man, he was going crazy, by the way.
Yeah.
Crazy tour, all of that. Rage bait, that's nasty work. Why is it like so many attacks on hip hop AR? Like it's a new article every single week about is it falling off? The
Yeah.
sales aren't this, it's not that. But then I see OutKast and I'm like, bro, growing up, they were selling hard copies, CDs,
Yeah.
merch, all of that stuff. What's going on? Like, is this real or are they just trying to attack hip hop AR?
Yeah, it's always been there. Like I said, you know, when hip hop first came out, they thought it was gonna be like disco. Right. Disco was like probably had like a 3 or 4 year run in the '70s, where it was basically about partying, things of that nature, and then it kind of died out really quick. So in the '80s, they really thought that that's what hip hop was gonna be. They thought it was gonna die out, but hip hop has become so important to not just American society, but global society, right? In my book Trap History, I talk about how trap music and the sound of trap music is almost on every continent around the globe. Like you got trap in Italy. Like the guy from Italy came over here, and we were talking about trap music in Italy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you could, like I said, you can't fake influence. Like you cannot fake the impact. They, you know, because it's a culture created for black people, and it's primarily it's the creators are black people. That's what hip hop is, like in terms of just for the majority part of it. So yeah, a lot of times they want to destroy something that's created, but it's like it's consumed around the world. Like you can't stop it, right? It's consumed globally, and so that's something that you can't hide, right? So I think that's always going to be the case, particularly when it comes to something that's black created. They want to kind of destroy it, but you can't. So it is what it is. You know, you gotta have to kind of ignore that misinformation. I call it misinformation.
I agree, man. Bro, 3 stacks. You said a crazy fire line of great things start in small little rooms, right? Like hearing that, right? A little room, thinking about Dungeon Family and the dungeon where they start. For all creatives, why is it, man, so important to just start opposed to waiting for a big room to start in, or starting at a concert hall, knowing that Andre 3000, Big Boi, Dungeon Family, even Future being around, right?
Yeah.
Was all happening in a little room. Why is that like so important, right? To start somewhere opposed to waiting on an opportunity to come, a record deal, a big signing, but just getting started. Why is that important?
Yeah, I mean, Andre, he put out a bar. You know, he gave a shout out to the White Stripes, and they had a song called Little Rooms, and it was that's basically what it is, right? And I remember I was watching the speech watching him say the speech at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I was like, man, that's an amazing tidbit of like the importance of just starting and then like creating something out of nothing. And I look at it like it wasn't even about a little room. It was Atlanta was at the time was a little city. Atlanta was a little city at the time, and it kind of, years later became impactful in so many ways. And so, like I say, Atlanta isn't New York in terms of size. It's not LA, but at times in hip hop, Atlanta has had a bigger impact than both of those cities in terms of hip hop over the last 30 years. You can't say that Atlanta hasn't had a bigger impact than New York or LA. Now they've both had some big moments, but overall, like Atlanta has like over 100 artists that you can say, man, like they've basically contributed something that's important to hip hop. And yeah, so it just, I think that moment of saying, yeah, man, great things start in little rooms. I think that's so inspiring to like, man, like you just got to start. Like you just can't like. Sometimes you think about, man, I gotta get this to this level. Like I gotta be here. You feel like you're not as prominent as you want to be, but you just gotta start. And then if you start, sometimes you just got to create a small movement, and then that movement can kind of just like snowball. And so I think that's the biggest thing that people should take away from that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame speech from OutKast Andre 3K is that you just got to start wherever you are. Just start today. Not, what I'm saying? Like not tomorrow. Stop putting it away. Stop saying that you're gonna do something down the line. Start today. Just put in the work, do your research, and figure out how to get it done. So I think that's the biggest message that we can take from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is just to start today and get it done.
That's beautiful. AR, man, if you could give game to young AR, right? What would you tell him? Would you tell him something on those same lines? What would you tell young AR?
Man, young AR, man, I would probably young AR would probably be amazed at some of the things that I've seen, some of the things that I've done. I mean, I don't think I even imagine like some of the things that I've done. Like I never imagined walking into the White House with a black president, and I never imagined that I would see OutKast at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it's some things that you don't ever think that is possible. And a lot of times when you have like dark moments, or you don't have a dark week or a dark year or a dark month, you think, damn, man, what you try to figure out how to make things better. But it's like, man, you just got to keep going because it gets greater later. Like you just really have to believe in, like, man, just because you're having like a bad time right now doesn't mean it's not going to get better, eventually down the line. But you just got to like stay focused, figure out how to do those things that you want to do. And so, that's what I would tell my young self is, man, just ignore the crap, ignore the BS, and then just stay on your path. I think that's the biggest thing that you can do is ignore the noise, because there's a lot of noise, a lot of people going to be grabbing at you, trying to get your attention, trying to pull you in the wrong direction. But if you stay focused on your path, I think that's the biggest thing that you can do. And then, like I say, it's gonna get greater later, and you're gonna like reach the potential that you want to get. The things that you put in, you're gonna get the outcome of it. So that's what I would tell my younger self for sure.
As a journalist, man, storyteller, how do we properly preserve and protect Outkast's story? Because
Yeah,
as we know, with history, sometimes things can be convoluted,
yeah,
misconstrued, misinformation to your point. So
yeah.
how do we block off all of those things from 50 years from now, right? When all of us are older, or even like 100 years from now, when everybody's gone, how do we properly protect Outkast's story?
Just tell the truth. I think we have to tell the truth about what Outkast is and what they came from and why. I think when we talk about 1995 Source Awards, people don't really. I think it's kind of like people don't really understand the significance of it and like why it was so hostile at the time, and being in Madison Square Garden, New York, and getting booed.
That's super New York. You ain't missed
They
it.
booed him. They booed Outkast in New York. But to understand that time period, it was just a time period when they just didn't understand Southern artists. They didn't really understand Atlanta. They didn't understand like, man, like there's that hip hop can exist outside of New York. It was a big thing. I think for whatever reason, I think New Yorkers saw hip hop as it's the birthplace of this genre. And it's like, man, we can't have people kind of muddying the waters with this country stuff, right? So I think that's how they saw it. They probably saw Outkast as being country and kind of doing their own thing, but um, that was significant, right? Because it was just like, man, like you know, have coming from a place and being an outsider, being in New York City, coming from Atlanta and getting booed, and it was like, man, like what do how do you Andre to have the wherewithal to say, man, the South got something to say. I think that was like a moment where it's like, damn, like it really put a battery in the back of a lot of people to say, man, we can do this, and we're not gonna like wait for you to accept us. And so I think that's the biggest lesson. It's just like don't wait for somebody to accept you. Be who you are, embrace who you are, and then let the chips fall where they can fall. So I think to me that's the biggest lesson, and I think that's what we need to always say about Outkast. Is like that's like to me the most pivotal moment. Is like they kind of went against the grain when it wasn't like they weren't popular and this place wasn't popular. So from a personal standpoint, I think everybody can take something from that. It's like there's gonna be times when people are gonna be against you, and then it's like, man, what can I do to kind of like you're not gonna appease everybody, but continue to do what you're supposed to do, and then figure out things along the way. So I think that's the most important thing.
Yes, sir, brother. What does the future of the Black Southern rapper look like to you, AR? Because we've seen OutKast set that tone, reference point, make history. What does a future artist in the South look like to you, who could potentially reach, that same status as them?
Yeah, man, it's interesting that so I'm gonna answer the question, but I kind of want to go back to regionalism. I kind of want regionalism to come back in a sense where it's like I want New Yorkers to sound like New York. I want people from their city to sound like people like they're from their city, because I think in the 90s it was like you didn't really know how black people were living, young black people were living in Oakland until you heard Too Short, right? Or E40. And you didn't know how young black people in Compton were living until you heard NWA, right? And you didn't really know how black people in Miami were living until you listened to Uncle Luke. And same thing with New York. You didn't know how black people young black people in New York were living until you listened to like Rakim or Big Daddy Kane, right? So they were really given perspectives they were local perspectives from a hip hop standpoint. Now everybody is like, it's like homogenized now, where everything sounds the same. Everything sounds Southern. Everything sounds like it's from Atlanta. I really don't want to hear a New York artist rapping like they're from Atlanta. I just don't want to hear that. I want to hear a New York artist from Brooklyn telling me a Brooklyn story. And the Brooklyn story shouldn't come over like a Zaytoven beat. I'm sorry. And I love Zaytoven, but I want to hear Gucci over. I want to hear Gucci rap over Zaytoven. I don't want to hear a Brooklyn rapper rap over Zaytoven. I want to hear a Brooklyn rapper rap over whether it's Primo or I just want that to come back, right? And for Southern artists, they pretty much they have like almost an opening, because it's like everybody's paying attention to that sound, right? And it's even like the women, like I said, the women are like they killing it, man. So it's like it's a whole movement of young black women that are like rapping and like doing their thing, like Pluto, Black Queen, YK Niece, YK Niece. Like, I mean, it's so many young black women who are like doing their thing when it comes to rapping in Atlanta, and it's just like, man, it's just like they doing it their way. Breezy, like they like it's so many, like they got a whole movement that's happening, and it's just like I feel like people not really respecting it, but like, man, they really like about to like really do something that's big. And so I think if from that standpoint, I think young black women in Atlanta are really like taking that, going to take it to that next level, right? I think they're going to be the ones who are kind of leading the way. And so we just got to like see what. To me, I'm like, I'm down for it. I want to hear what they got coming out. And so I think that's kind of where we at right now. Like, just expressing yourself and being true to who you are, and not like wavering. So I think that's the biggest thing.
I agree, brother. Man, our phones, man, you talk
Yeah.
about regionalism, talking about our music,
Yeah.
regions, all those things. Do you feel like our phones then, social media has caused everything to start sounding the same, of other artists chasing that same sound, same look, same feel? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so what happens is like, particularly with music, once music becomes a commodity, then it's like record labels dictate from a monetary standpoint what's going to like get played. Then it's like other artists kind of follow suit, and it's like, all right, this is the sound that's popular right now. These are what record labels are signing. This is what's going to make you the most money. Other artists are like following suit and kind of like basically copying and mimicking what they think is successful. And so I think to me that's a missed opportunity, because it's just like, man, like I just like I said before, I just want us to kind of like really give our own perspectives, because that's really what hip hop should be. And hip hop is a form of journalism, and as journalists, it's our job to kind of tell us what we see. Like I'm not trying to write what somebody in New York writes. You know what I'm saying? In terms of I'm writing what I see, right? And I think that's what we should get back to when it comes to music, particularly in hip hop. Write what you see, express things how you want to express yourself. Kind of off the beaten path, but what was the guy who who was with Kanye who sounded like Future?
Panda, designer.
Designer. Case in point. So Designer, like I don't know, 10 years ago, he comes out rapping like Future.
Exactly 10 years ago. Yeah.
Exactly 10 years ago, talking about, he got bras in Atlanta. Everybody thinking like, man, who's this guy? We thought it was Future at first, and he's like, I got bras in Atlanta, da da da. Come to find out, this guy, he said he was like talking to a girl from Facebook and she was from Atlanta. So that was his connection to Atlanta. So I'm just like, all right. But like a couple weeks ago, he comes out with this he comes out with a clip where he's like rapping from like he from New York, just spitting. And I'm just like, man, like how crazy it is that you feel like you had to rap from another region to kind of get on. And it's so topsy-turvy from like the 90s when like you couldn't get on being an Atlanta rapper. Now it's like it's the formula to like get on, where this guy felt like he had to actually rap like Future to get on, and he got a deal off of that, you know what I'm saying? But that wasn't really how he rapped, because we saw a case in point 2 or 3 weeks ago when he comes out with this clip of him just like, spitting, and like you can actually hear what he's saying. He's not really mumbling. He's like being articulate with his lyrics. It's like, man, this dude can really rap. He got lyrics, but for whatever reason, he didn't want to be himself. And I think that's the biggest missed opportunity in hip hop. Like, you got to be yourself. In anything you do. I think whatever medium that you're on, like, be yourself, man. Don't like try to copy people. And that's another thing about OutKast. Is like OutKast, they didn't try to be like anybody. Like, it was like they were just always gonna be themselves. And I just wish that, whether it's music, whether it's podcasting, whether it's media, journalism, like we gotta be ourselves, man. We can't just like try to copy what we feel is the model for success. Because what work for somebody else might not work for you.
Man, AR, bro, you gave out so many gems today. This was a phenomenal episode, bro. Expert opinion, though.
Yeah.
If you had to guess or predict who would be next from Atlanta to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who would you say?
Man, it's hard because I say it's only 3 people that's ever been inducted from Atlanta, and Atlanta has a long history of musicians, and there's only, like I say, Gladys Knight, the latest Lady Betty. She was like a folk singer or something. And then OutKast. So it's only been 3 artists from Atlanta to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If I was to take a guess of somebody who could possibly get into it, man, that's gonna be hard. Because the thing is, you have to have not just hip hop impact. You got to almost have like a global impact, and like not in just like cross genres. And it's gonna be hard, man.
It might be Future, I think. And like, I ain't trying to be funny.
I was thinking about Future. But I don't know if the thing about Future is Future gonna get close. Yeah. But the thing about Future is I don't know if his impact, like he's had a great impact. Like you can't deny Future at all.
He has a cult following down.
And he has a cult following. You know what? It might be Future. I'm not gonna.
That would be
it might be a turn, but Future he could be close. But I still think he has some
more bangers too, man.
He got a lot of bangers, but the thing about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is kind of like it's almost people who've like they kind of like almost made impacts beyond just hip hop, like
NFL Hall of Fame. Where
it's just like it's
hard to get into.
It's hard to get into, and it's just like
gotta get that gold jacket.
Yeah, man, but Future probably is the closest one.
His favorite artist of all time besides Beyonce.
Okay. Yeah, Future.
Got the girls on live.
Yeah, Future he's close. Now, a dark horse is Ludacris. And only
you're right.
And I only say a dark horse. He doesn't have as many hits as Future, but the thing about Ludacris is that he has a big crossover following.
Global impact to
you. Yeah, like he's
Fast and Furious series.
Yeah. So it's like Ludacris is like a household name.
Yeah,
and so a lot of times you gotta have to be a household name to kind of get into these spaces. And outside of Future, it's probably Ludacris because everybody knows Ludacris. So that's probably like the only person I think that's close. The thing that's probably gonna stop Ludacris is that he doesn't. I don't know if Ludacris has a signature album. He doesn't have a signature project that's like he doesn't have a magnum opus. Like you need a magnum opus. Like you need a Thriller. You need a Purple Rain. Like OutKast got a Quimini. Like you got to have that magnum opus. I don't know if Ludacris has that
You
yet.
might be cooked then, AR, and we just got to celebrate OutKast.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you
But I
right?
think Future has a magnum opus. Yeah, so it's like
DS2 is it?
that's what I'm saying. That's like so it's like I think that's the only thing that will probably hold Ludacris back is just that signature project. But other than that, then he has the hits. He has like the mainstream success. He has everything that you would need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I'm gonna say Future 1A and then Ludacris 1B in terms of Atlanta artists who could be next to make it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
AR, do you think that we truly appreciate Future then? Because it's like Future seeing his run has been 10 years plus, man.
Yeah.
So do we actually appreciate Future, do you think, as an artist?
So Future issue is something that a lot of rock artists didn't have, and I'm gonna explain it to you. So so there was a lot of like old soul artists and rock artists who were just like had like bad personal lives, right? Bobby Womack is my favorite artist, like soul artist. Bobby Womack that man was
They say it was a menace, huh?
he was a menace to society, boy. Bobby Womack, but I'm not gonna go into the details of Bobby Womack, but just Google do your research on Bobby Womack and his relationships, his personal relationships. Bobby Womack has some very bad personal relationships, and so, but the average person didn't know about it, right? And so you just got the music. Now with the age of social media, everybody knows about your personal life, right? Future has like a turbulent personal life, right? And it's just like I think that might be the biggest thing where it's like because a lot of women like his music, but they don't like him as a person, right? And so that's kind of a disconnect with a lot of people. It's just like, man, like people are like they'll listen to Future's music and they're just like, man, like they like the baby mama drama and all that kind of stuff. People get caught up in that aspect of it. I think that's the only reason why he's not really appreciated, fully is because of that. Is because people know about his personal life and they kind of judge him off of not his music but his personal life. So that's the backlash that he's faced. But if he was out in the 60s, nobody would know, right? Like nobody would care about his personal life. Or even like a Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye had some, issues as well. Like a lot of those artists in the 60s and 70s got away with a lot of stuff, man, because there wasn't really tabloid like it is today. So that's probably the only reason why Future is like doesn't get like the big overall respect is because of that. It's because like people are like judging him about things that he's done or hasn't done personally, but music wise, man, he's like on another level.
Yes, sir, bro. Very last question for you, brother. What can we learn from OutKast, right? From Big Boi, Three Stacks, Dungeon Family, as a people, community, artists, journalists, that we can apply in our everyday lives? What would you say our biggest lesson that we can gain from OutKast? What would you say that lesson is, AR?
Yeah, so I remember listening to OutKast's album Southern Playalistic for the first time, man. I was young, and then I remember like Big Rube got given the definition of OutKast, and then he's like, define OutKast, just like not accepted by the normal society, you know, um, and so Big Rube is like, he's like, he asked the question, are you an outcast? He said, I know I am. Matter of fact, if being anything else, I want to be an outcast. And so I think for me, I took that on. It's like, man, I'm going to always do things my way, regardless of if I'm popular or not, if people like me or not, I'm going to always do things my way. And I think that's how we have to approach life. It's like, man, like do things the way you want to do it. As long as it's not like impacting anybody else, like find your space, be comfortable with your space and be comfortable with your decisions and the things that you make, right? That's like the biggest thing that you can take from OutKast, right? That's really their model. It was like, we're not going to be like everybody else. We're going to kind of stick out in this crowded field and do things our own way. And so I think if we take that that same mentality in any position that you're in, whether you're in a corporate space, whether you're in, doing things independently. Always have that mentality of like, man, I want to do things my way and what makes me feel good, what makes me more comfortable, and I'm going to continue to do those things. I'm not going to compromise myself. I'm not going to I'm always going to stand up, always keep my head up. I'm not going to do things because somebody else wants me to do it, or that's what the status quo says is right. I want to do things that I know is right because this is the way I see the world. This is the way I see life. And so when it comes to OutKast, that's what I say about them is that they always did things their way. They saw things that they saw things the way they saw it, and they never let anybody compromise and distract them from where they wanted to go. So those are the biggest lessons that we can take from OutKast.
Mic drop right there. Ladies and gentlemen, the great A.R. Shaw. Brother, on the way out, Trap History, where can we buy the book, read, check it out, follow you, all that good stuff?
Yeah. Check out Trap History, Atlanta Culture, and the Global Impact of Trap Music. I have a whole chapter on OutKast about basically spitting about how they kind of changed the culture of Atlanta and what Atlanta was before OutKast, and how OutKast basically changed the whole notion of what Atlanta is. André 3000 was actually the first person to say the word trap on a record on Players Ball. So man, it's just so much history behind OutKast, and I kind of highlight that in Trap History. So check out Trap History, good read for the holidays. If you want to sit down and learn a little bit more about Atlanta's culture, definitely check that out. And follow me, A.R. Shaw, on Instagram. I'm on Threads a little bit sometimes. So just check that out, and much success to you, man. And again, man, this I like the new digs. It's definitely elevation is always key, man. So much respect on the elevation.
Look, likewise, y'all, man. A.R. Shaw, I appreciate you greatly, bro. Always pulling up, giving us knowledge, all of that. So, man, thank you for all that you do. Y'all, make sure to follow him, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, A.R., I already know you'll be back. So, man, we appreciate you, brother. Until next time, y'all. Peace.